At exactly 8:32 a.m. on a clear morning in 2001, President Bush exits his suite at the Colony Beach Resort in Florida. He gets into his presidential limousine, heading to a local elementary school. The purpose of this visit? To promote a new educational initiative. On any other day, this type of event might not even be a footnote in history. However, just minutes before Bush reaches the school, a piece of breaking news begins to circulate. News that will alter the trajectory of history itself. At 8:46 a.m., American Airlines Flight 11 crashes into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The shock of this moment reverberates almost instantly, spreading across the media. A mere 88 seconds after the impact, a WNYW camera crew broadcasts the news live. By 8:49 a.m., CNN interrupts its programming to cover the crash, soon followed by CNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, and international outlets. Within 10 minutes, the eyes of the world are fixed on New York City. At this stage, the event's cause is still unknown, and in Sarasota, there is cautious speculation. President Bush, meanwhile, is inside the school, oblivious to the unfolding tragedy, as White House Chief of Staff Karl Rove briefs him about the impact before he steps into the classroom. As the nation tunes in to news anchors deliberating over potential causes, Bush listens to children reading stories. At this point, it's still possible that the crash was a terrible accident. But just minutes later, that assumption is shattered. At 9:03 a.m., United Flight 175 slams into the South Tower. 2 minutes pass as the gravity of the situation dawns on reporters and White House officials alike. But President Bush is one of the few still in the dark, until Chief of Staff Andrew Card leans over and delivers the fateful words, "A second plane hit the second tower. America is under attack." Not far away, Air Force One, a specially equipped Boeing 747, readies for an unplanned journey back to Washington. But as events quickly evolve, it becomes apparent that Bush will spend much longer aboard than initially anticipated. After the school event was cut short, senior White House staff gather in a nearby classroom for a briefing, following the news on TV, much like the rest of the country, and an initial statement was prepared.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center.
Meanwhile, the Air Force takes measures to ensure Air Force One's safe passage. The question of whether Bush should return to the Capitol remains contentious as further attacks materialize. While the president is in his limousine, during his ride to the airport, he's informed of another attack.
A live picture from Washington, and there is smoke pouring out of the Pentagon.
Approximately 10 minutes later, as Air Force One prepares to take off from Sarasota, the Secret Service receives word of a person near the runway with an unidentified device, fearing a potential threat. Even though later it turned out to be nothing but a camera. As a precaution, the pilot decided to turn the plane around to depart from the opposite end, minimizing exposure. The aircraft also performs a rapid, steep ascent, a defensive maneuver to evade any ground-based threats. As Air Force One gains altitude, heading towards the capital city, one other plane over U.S. airspace is still under the control of the hijackers. Flight 93, initially heading to San Francisco, had changed course. Now, also approaching Washington, D.C. As it later turns out, the passengers of this flight had heard of the attacks on New York and initiated a revolt against the hijackers, with passengers attempting to gain control. At 10:03 a.m., the plane crashes in Pennsylvania. Though their efforts couldn't save themselves, the passengers prevented the hijackers from reaching their destination. Meanwhile, on Air Force One, heated discussions ensue about the president's destination. Although Bush orders a return to Washington, the Secret Service resists, opting instead for Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana for refueling and strategizing. As Air Force One heads towards Louisiana, concerns rise that it may be a target. While it has flares and smokescreens for protection against heat-seeking and radar-guided missiles, it remains vulnerable to collisions. With heightened caution, the plane ascends to an unusually high 45,000 feet, a level reserved to avoid potential threats. Just before arrival in Louisiana, 2 fighter jets from Joint Reserve Base Ellington joined to escort Air Force One. Upon landing at Barksdale Air Force Base, Bush addresses the nation again.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended.
As Bush delivers his speech, his security team and national advisors have come up with a new destination. At 1:48 p.m., Air Force One took off from Barksdale, but not for Washington. Instead, it headed toward Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. Offutt was chosen for its U.S. Stratcom bunker, a highly secure underground compound equipped with advanced communication systems. As Air Force One flew toward Nebraska, it was virtually alone in American skies. By 9:45 a.m., just an hour after the first strike, a complete shutdown of U.S. airspace had been ordered. Planes were directed to land at the nearest airport, and by 12:15 p.m., this unprecedented grounding of all commercial and general aviation was complete. After landing at Offutt, the President and his team moved to the Stratcom bunker. While the security measures provided a sense of stability, the day's chaos was far from over. At 4:36 p.m., with no further active attacks reported, plans were made for the President to return to Washington. Air Force One departed Offutt for Joint Base Andrews, but the flight was conducted under the strictest security measures. The Secret Service wasn't just concerned about external threats, there was fear of a potential attack from within. One not frequently reported on concern was that just a few hours earlier, a call had come in at the White House switchboard with a message that resulted in the worst of fears. The message on the call was "Angel is next." Angel was the classified code name for Air Force One. And what is especially concerning is the fact that this code word was not publicly known, leading Secret Service agents to suspect an insider might be plotting an attack on the plane. In response, agents were stationed in the aisles of the presidential cabin and at the cockpit door, prepared to defend against any potential attackers. Later investigations revealed that the Angel threat was a misunderstanding, one of many false alarms on a day rife with tension and uncertainty, yet in the moment it heightened fears aboard the President's aircraft. At 6:44 p.m., Air Force One finally touched down at Andrews Air Force Base. From there, the President boarded Marine One and made his way back to the White House, where he addressed the nation from the Oval Office that evening. What should have been a routine 2.5-hour flight turned into a 9-hour odyssey, a tense relay across the country while the nation faced its darkest hour. Thousands of lives had been lost, and the world was forever changed. For Air Force One, this was arguably the most severe test of its security capabilities. The aircraft performed as designed, with protocols and piloting decisions ensuring the President's safety. Yet weaknesses were revealed. Delayed fighter escorts, misinformation, and unreliable communications. These gaps would lead to sweeping changes in the years that followed. This was a day that tested not just Air Force One, but the resilience of an entire nation.